Oh, thanks.
Okay.
Thanks. Good. Well, that was going to be my next thing, is to talk about this session will be recorded. So as of
Yay.
now, this session is recorded. And the session will be posted in the National Resources on Monday of next week at the latest, probably sooner, but Monday at the latest. And just one last final reminder. At the end of the session, I already know, I'm already expecting it, you will probably have even more questions. Now, I can't promise you that I'll answer all those questions or Sharon will answer all those questions. We'll do the best we can. However, I don't want to discourage you from asking the questions. Please, please, please feel free to send those to webmail@abwa, because if it's your question, it might be someone else's question. And then when we do this next webinar, which will probably be early May, not on a religious holiday or any big holiday, in early May, then what we'll do is make sure we include your question. So that's all I have about that. Do you have anything to add, Sharon?
Good.
Okay.
No, I'm good. Yeah.
Okay, let's just actually go for the very first announcement. And I'd like to share with you is, as a reminder, on April 30th, we have given a deadline for the Leader Standard Work course provided in the Apex campus. Now, we announced this at the March 19th webinar. This course is complimentary if you register by April 30th. Now, that doesn't mean on April 29th at midnight, you try to register for the course. If you miss that deadline, we can't roll it back and restart the whole process. So if you miss the deadline, you miss the deadline. I encourage you to register early. So if you do have any problems registering for the course, that we can assist you. The last day for filing your leagues or your council's 990 is on May 15th. We don't know of any change in the deadlines for that, but this is pretty easy filing. So you could do this at home, doesn't require any big effort, but you need to file for the council's 990N. There are a couple things here. This one is a deadline extension. And this is for the final day for applicants to complete the online process for impact scholarships. Do you want to say anything about that, Sharon?
Well, I just want to say, I know some with schools being closed right now, and I know we've had questions about transcripts and unofficial versus official transcripts and letters of recommendation. So we know those are issues. We hear you, and that's one of the reasons that we have extended the deadline. So we do realize there are applications being completed now. According to Jill, she is getting those in. So just follow up with that. There are skeleton crews still working at the colleges that we've heard. So just follow up and make sure those applicants take advantage of the 2-week extension and get everything in. You don't want them to lose out on the money that's so badly needed, especially now.
And I would say I checked with Jill Miller, who was the SBMEF administrator earlier today, just asking her if she had heard of anyone having difficulty getting those transcripts, and she said no. Everything's coming in just as she would expect it to come in. So that's the good news. On June 30th, there's another deadline extension as a result of the COVID-19 virus, and that is we've extended the spring membership campaign to June 30th, so by 1 month or 30 days. And here's one for you, Sharon.
The STR applications, the deadline has been extended as well. As you know, you can get the money in by June 1st. You can pull it by August 1st. You can use it for your regional conferences, and the deadline has been extended to 6:30. Am I saying that right, Renee? I know we just talked about this last night.
Yes, that's what's on the screen. Yes.
Yes, June 30th. That's also been extended. So take advantage of that. You know, that is one of our goals. And I know we have not our KRAs that the board has set forth this year to try to increase participation. And I know it's tough times, but I really think with the spring conferences, the regional conferences, that we can make it happen still. So we're hoping. We're really dependent on y'all to try to help us meet this KRA, and it's a win-win for everybody.
the liability insurance premium that is due to ABWA National on June 30th. And the website listing or hosting form is also due to ABWA National on June 30th. This information was sent to the presidents several weeks back, so it's included in the current president's packet. There's a few other changes that we've made. The first change, well, there's no change. Best practices submission is still due on July 31st. The one change that we made, because this is a nationally sponsored awards program, is that we extended the deadline for top 10 nominees. Now, this is a little bit tough schedule for us because we're dependent on volunteers to review those applications, but we wanted to make sure that we provided ample timeline and built some timeline in for leagues. The Achieve newsletter, which is a handout, this newsletter is just finished here today. You get a sneak preview of that newsletter. You could download it here today. The rest of the organization will be emailed next Tuesday, which is April 14th. Now, the reason why we don't like emailing on Friday or Monday is because we've already tracked the performance of our organization. Nobody opens up those emails. So we try to minimize our Friday and Monday output, but you'll see this out on Tuesday. It would also be posted in the national resources on Tuesday. Now, I think this issue is great because the dates to remember, the things that you just saw on the screen, we have that also listed. So we're doing some redundant communication. We have 3 articles that I think are specific to today's environment, including tips and working remotely. We have the highlights from Biz Mentoring Monday event, and where social distancing, of course, was not an issue. We have member recognition, although we only recognize even, how do I say it, milestone anniversaries. So we know Sharon has a 33-year anniversary coming up. She'll be recognized in the newsletter at 35. Don't send me an email, Sharon.
I won't, I promise. Not about that anyway.
And then we also recognize inner circle recognition and leveling up and so on. Now, the one thing I have to share with you, it's not good news, but I want to be honest with everyone here on today, is we have certainly experienced, because of COVID-19, just like you experience in your business or perhaps with your employment, we had a drop in sponsors. We had certainly an impact from the regional conference events going virtual, and of course, members who have opted not to renew. That has really created some financial constraint. What that means to us is that at this point in time, we can see, at least for the near future, that the Women in Business magazine will not be published in 2020. So things changed, hooray, we're back online, but this is where we are today. Other announcements, we have a stay-at-home order still in effect in the Kansas City area. We suspect that stay-at-home order will be extended. So what happens in our team is we are still working. Every one of our team members are still working. We're just having to work differently in order to accommodate and service the association. So if you have any questions, don't call us. Don't put a message on anyone's voicemail. Contact us at webmail@abwa.org, and we'll be sure to answer that. We are monitoring that every single day, 7 days a week. And that's no lie. And the list of attendees for the upcoming Eastern Regional Conference, I want to bring this to your attention. We are just scrubbing the list of people who said, yes, I'm interested in attending. We're going to post that list to the Central Regional Conference team boards on the next day or so. And it could be this weekend when I'm here in the office. If your name is not on that list, but you want to attend, because we said if you buy one, you could go to 3, you have to please contact us by Tuesday, April 14th, again, by webmail, because Jill is actually printing all the stuff. Our team is compiling the conference materials, And there's a limited number of conference materials. So if you're not an Eastern Regional Conference attendee, you may not get the whole packet. You may have to download the Friday packet. So that's a heads up to you. Business as usual in the association. We are new member cards, anniversary letters, all of those things continue to be mailed to our members. We haven't missed a beat in that regard. The national team is also doing something. One of the things we do every month is we call members who are not renewing. We want to know why they're not renewing, if there's some, so that we could identify any trends that might exist. But this time, in the last week and a half, we started, meaning Cynthia Bell, one of our team members, started calling all of the presidents. And she called presidents so we could start to glean information, see what the issues that they were experiencing, what they need help with them, and if there is something that we can pull over into this webinar, we would do that. And so we actually did just that. Thank you, Cynthia. And I think she's on District 4 right now, working on District 4 presidents. The question has come up several times, is the National Women's Leadership Conference going to be scheduled? We are planning on that. It will be hosted as scheduled. So my only recommendation is that you book your rooms right now. Okay, so before actually our friend Lois is presented, I have a little poll for you. So let me see if I could pull it up. Okay, so this is a poll created by Lois, so see if you, why don't you answer the questions? I'll give you a few more seconds. Okay. All righty. So can you see the results, Sharon?
Yes, I see them. I want to know who said they would need to fix their hair before anybody sees them.
I would have said that, by the way. Okay. Well, let me introduce someone I think most everyone knows. Her name is Lois Margolin. She is an entrepreneur. She's a public speaker. She's a member of the Coral Springs Charter Chapter. She is one of those people that is one of my go-to people in the association. And she is going to do something I think will be fantastic for all of you. So please welcome Lois Margolin. Lois, are you on?
I am, but I'm only seeing the poll. Can we get that taken down?
I'm sorry, are you not seeing the poll?
I'm only seeing the poll.
Okay, let's.
There you go.
Okay.
Now I can see everybody.
Okay, there you go. Okay, so I'll just move on to the first slide and you tell me when to move on to the next one.
All right, you have it. Well, I hope you were interested in that poll, and we are going to be talking about that in a little bit. But basically today we're going to be going through how to set up your room. some Zoom etiquette, how to run a meeting, some technical ideas, and then we're going to actually talk about your mobile phone because it does not act the same as your computer, and there are a lot of questions about it. So let's get started. Host setup. And one more. So what is the host? No, it's not that thing that lives inside of you if you've got some kind of alien or something. The host is actually the person that owns the meeting. They're the ones that set it up and logged in as an administrator. The host can assign a second person, and that would be called a co-host. But the main person is the one that signs in as the admin, and they have all the control, and they can actually stop and end the meeting. When do you assign a host and a co-host? Well, obviously you're the host because it's your room number, but the co-host should be assigned in advance. And think about the co-host as your right arm. They are the one that's going to be watching things as it happens, just to make sure that the whole meeting is flowing nicely. So it's your second. And then we also have, moving on, what would a host or a co-host do? Well, we've got a noisy audience. They're going to make sure that everybody's muted. If you've got one of those inappropriate video screens that someone's doing and they don't realize that everybody can see them, they can stop the video. They also monitor the chat in case there are any questions. And if someone raises their hand through the participant section, they're the ones that are going to stop the speaker and say, we have a problem, we can't see your screen, they can't hear you. That's a physical stop. We also recommend if you're going to be using the chat for questions, then we put a little question mark in front so your chat monitor or your host and co-host can easily find those questions. And lastly, the host and the co-host make sure that only the appropriate people are sharing screens, because we've all heard about Zoom bombing, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit later when we do that. Let's keep going. Okay. So I always check with my speaker to make sure I know how they want the room to flow, because it's not my meeting, it's the speaker's meeting. Do they want questions in the chat? Do they want the chat to be quiet? Do they want people to raise their hands? Do they want to be interrupted? Do they want to encourage emoticons? All of these things are part of the Zoom setup, and you should know that in advance, because some speakers want to turn it off and some are going to encourage it. So what kind of things do I normally turn on? Well, I turn on the chat and the private chat. And the chat just allows you to let everybody know your thoughts. Oh, I really enjoy that speech, or here's a book you might want to read, or here's a link to something. So it's something that everybody in the meeting can see, versus a private chat, which is me just sending a comment to Sharon or Renee or Robert that I don't want anybody else to see, just them. I turn on polling because I like to ask questions like Renee was doing. I also turn on annotations so that if people want to write on the board, the whiteboard, when we're actually sharing screens, they can. I love nonverbal feedback because, as you know, I like my little emoticons, and I want to be able to raise the thumb up. I want to be able to say yes, no, go faster, go slower. And then we come to the waiting room. Yes, you all had the poll on the waiting room, and then we all want to really look good before we get into the room. There are really two great reasons to have a waiting room. And the first reason is that when you are now setting up your Zoom room, you should be setting it up with a password. As a matter of fact, some of you might have found out that Zoom turned on required passwords, and then after getting a lot of grief, they turned it off. But there's no saying that they're not going to turn it back on. So you have a password and you have a Zoom room. But if you put that out there for the world, how do you know if someone is not going to hijack your meeting? If you just let everybody in. So what do you use the waiting room for? I use the waiting room, and if I see people that I know and they are supposed to be in this meeting, either I'm checking them off, or if I'm having an ambassador meeting and I know my ambassadors, I can just let the ambassadors in one by one. If someone comes in with the term iPhone, iPad, Galaxy, telephone number, I will wait until I get everybody else settled. I will then allow that person to come in, and I immediately target them. And I say, excuse me, whoever just came in the room with the telephone number up, can you please tell me your name? And I'll do that for 10 seconds. If they do not tell me their name and I know they can unmute or I've unmuted them, I will usually remove them from the meeting, because if it's somebody that I'm supposed to know, we should all be going in with real names, not a phone number, not the word iPhone. And there are ways for you to change it. When you come in, you can actually change your user profile before you even get to Zoom. Or if you're on the phone, when you go in, you'll see that you have your username there. If it says iPhone or iPad, change it. The other thing that I use the waiting room for is if you're hospitality and people have paid, then I want to let all the people that have paid in, and if somebody hasn't paid and I have my registration list, I can go ahead and connect them up with the hospitality chair and say, we have somebody coming in who has not paid, their name is, and I can send them off. Lastly, I mute people upon entry. In the beginning, it's really a pain, I will admit. Nobody wants to come in quiet because we all want to go. But here's the thing. Once the speaker starts, if somebody comes in and they don't realize that their mic is on, they're saying, yeah, bring me that coffee, will you? The meeting's starting any minute. And the speaker is talking, and now you've got mayhem because people are interrupting. So when we let everybody come in mute, it's just polite. Moving on. So here's how you set up your Zoom room. You log in, and I recommend for most people, until you're really comfortable with this, use the website. Use zoom.us, create your account, and then log in. And it's pretty simplistic from here. You go to meetings, and then you go to schedule a meeting. From there, you have all kinds of different options that you can have. Ding. Thank you. Your topic is actually your title. That's when you send your invite. That's what people are going to see as your topic. Now, the critical thing here is make sure your time zone is right. We want to make sure we've got that going. And then you have something called a personal ID and your generate automatically. So a generate automatically is if you're just doing something real fast, you want to generate a meeting, here you go. Here's the downside to a generate automatically. I have now sent everybody and their mother my link and my password for this meeting. I've done it 2 weeks in advance. By accident, didn't mean to do it. I started that meeting and then I ended it. Well, that room ID number that got generated automatically is now gone, which means I can't get it back, which means everybody I told the room number and the password no longer works. So if you're doing something in the future and you're going to actually be sending information in the future, I recommend the personal ID. If you're going to send it at the very last second, you can do generate automatically. There's also the option to set the password. Here's the way Zoom is working right now, and I imagine they're going to change this. If I have a meeting and I set my password as 10,000 and I have a meeting tomorrow, when I set that password as 10,000 right now, it changes all my future meeting passwords. So if you're going to keep changing your password, make sure you're keeping a list if you've already shared it with people. So I think what Zoom is getting to is you let people register, but then you don't send them the link and the password until you get clear to the meeting. So you have a better control of your ID and your meeting password. Okay. Here's the meeting password. I always turn on the video for myself, the participant come in with the video, but remember when each person logs in, they have the option at that time to say join video or join without video. I'm just giving them the option. I do mute participants upon entry and I do enable the waiting room. And when you copy the invitation, a couple of seconds ago, you saw that screen where it said the password and the room ID. Well, right next to that, it gives you the option to copy invitation. So Zoom will only create an invitation on the half hour. So it's 7 o'clock or 7:30. If you have a 7:15 or 7:45, you copy this invitation. It's just a text. You can go in and edit it. If you didn't put a topic in there, you can change the topic. It's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. As long as your meeting ID and your password works, you're golden. All right, so now we're going to be talking about some Zoom etiquette. This is something that everybody needs to be aware of. Like any meeting, you have to start with an introduction. Don't come into the meeting, turn off your camera, and just sit there. You want to interact with people. So I'm going to assume that we're working with an ABWA monthly meeting. What would you do? You'd be going up, you'd be hugging everybody, you'd be saying hello. It's the same thing. You want to make sure you have, most likely the president, who's calling on people and actually acknowledging them. And hi, Sharon, how are you doing today? And Sharon would respond. Hopefully Sharon would say something, but otherwise that's good too. And Sharon would talk about how her day was and how life is, and then we'd go to the next person and, oh, we have a guest. Where did you hear about us? So it's no different. Before the meeting, you're still just chatting away. And choose a precise name. Don't choose Jane's mom or, you know, my dog Max. Choose a name that makes sense for you. So here are some ideas, and I don't know if they'll come up on here. Right, so if you're the president, membership, you know, hospitality, do a name that actually makes sense, especially if you have guests, because they need to know who they're looking to. And if they're a guest, have them renamed so they actually say guest in their name. How do you do that? You simply click on your picture in Zoom, right click, and rename. You can pick any name you want. Have a nice, clean, professional background. This is still a workplace. If you've got kids running in the background, you've got dogs running, it's okay right now because everybody has that happening. So we all understand. But here's what's going to happen down the road. We're going to be using Zoom a lot more for our business. And my prediction is that there is going to be a gluttony of office space because a lot of companies are realizing, I don't have to pay for all that office space. I can have some people work at home or do some shared space. So they're going to be making a lot of us work from home. And if you're going to work from home, you need to make sure you have that clean background, and you need to make sure that you're in a room that you can close the doors so you have some quiet.
Lois,
Yes, ma'am.
can you tell people about the purchasing the green screen?
Absolutely. So there are two ways that you can make things nice and popping. You can have a green screen, and that is literally just a curtain. You can go to Walmart for $2.99 and get a sheet. You can go to the flea market. You can go to eBay. Just iron it out, and you put it behind you. And then on Zoom, you would do an arrow up underneath your by the stop video or start video, and you can do a virtual background, and it will display that virtual background right on the green screen. Now, if you have a more current computer, you don't have a green screen, you can do the virtual background, and you still pick another option of whatever you want to upload, what image. The difference between the green screen and a virtual background is the green screen, I can do this, and it looks great. A virtual background, and you've seen it, it looks kind of weird when you do this, these black lines start coming in. So you have to learn how to do expressions more inside the box and not out here. So it really restricts you, but it all depends on which way you are more comfortable with. I started for many years working with the green screen. Then I moved to virtual, and now I read all over the place. Yeah, we want you to be real. We want to see your background. We want to know who you are. Ditch the virtual. So you decide what works for you. Okay, and where do you look? Well, if I'm looking over here because I'm seeing Renee, it just looks weird to have a speaker where you're seeing their ear. And when you're working on the Brady Bunch screen, which is what I call it, and you're all the way over here going, hi, John, how you doing? Nobody knows what you're doing. Here's a trick. Put the camera right in front of your screen. It kind of makes it distorted. So my camera right now, I have two screens, is literally right in front of me. And I have Sharon and Renee on one side of my screen, and I have Robert and myself on the other. And that forces me to look down the center. So do a trick, force yourself to look into the camera, because that's how you're going to be talking to people. It's the new way. And if you're not speaking, mute yourself. So Zoom has this feature that you can record your meetings. And if you record anything, make sure that you tell everybody in the beginning that you are recording this meeting and you are making it if you're making it live to the public or you're putting it behind YouTube channel, whatever you're doing, make sure your audience knows. But here's the trick about Zoom. When you go to record in the cloud, Zoom records in speaker mode and it records in gallery mode. The gallery mode is that Brady Bunch screen. The speaker mode is when the speaker is talking, that's all you see is the speaker. So I was giving this amazing speech, if I do say so myself, and it was really deep and introspective. And in the middle of this speech, and I'm watching the replay because I'm going, oh my gosh, that was so good. And next thing I know, somebody blew their nose and they're honking away, and that's in the middle of the speech. So mute yourself. You don't need to be heard. Honestly, we don't need to hear you when someone else is speaking. And if you're a host and co-host, it's your responsibility to make sure everybody's muted except the speaker. Okay? And here is your Brady Bunch gallery. And it is so much nicer when you are a speaker, when you can see everybody versus everybody going dark. So when everybody turns off their camera, you're just talking to this sea of black. And that is a difficult thing for most speakers, because speakers gain their energy from you, the audience. So I always encourage my audience, give me a thumbs up, you know, go to the participant panel and clap, or they have this new thing called reaction at the bottom. They just put it on, I think this week. And at the bottom, you can clap, you can give a thumbs up. As a speaker, I will also engage the audience and ask them yes and no questions, but it's super important that you are engaged with the speaker. That's who we rely on, is you. Moving on. And chat appropriately. You know, if a speaker is talking about something, they don't want to be saying, oh, I did a hairdresser's today. Honestly, nobody really wants to hear that. They're trying to listen to the speaker. Afterwards, you're more than welcome to do that. I am going to go back to the video for 1 second. If you're going to stop your video, please wait until it's appropriate to stop. If a speaker's in the middle of speaking and you keep turning your camera on and off, they get distracted, because every time you turn it off, you move to the bottom of the path. All the screens start rearranging. And if they're rearranging, the speaker is going, okay, what's happening? And it's distracting. So act as if it was actually a bathroom break. When they pause, turn yourself on. When they pause, turn yourself on. And just be consistent like you would expect. Okay, thank you. Moving on. So we talked about the chat. Okay, in the participant section, if at the bottom of your screen it says participant, you can go in there and raise your hand. Now, Zoom is in the process of changing a whole bunch of controls. So I think the raise hand is going to be on the bottom pretty soon, because they are working on that. Here's the thing, the raised hand is really important for stopping the speaker, and the raised hand also, it'll interrupt the speaker and it will ask, how many people do this? And you raise your hand and you lower your hand. So be aware that that feature is there and use it when you need to. And I love the emoticons, or what Zoom calls nonverbal communication. So this is where you get to tell the speaker, yes, no, go faster, go slower. And if you were looking at more, there's actually a coffee cup, which tells me, hey, they went for coffee. I'm not going to ask them a question because they're not there. But remember to turn it off when it's appropriate. And here are some technical ideas. If you want to share your screen, and this is something that Zoom is now allowing a little bit different, and today they changed the panel down below, and it allows the host to stop the screen sharing. You should not be sharing your screen with anyone, because if you don't use the waiting room, or you're not really vetting that come in, Zoom has come in, stolen your screen, go into the screen sharing, turn off anybody else, and they're putting all kinds of inappropriate stuff up there. So the way Zoom is getting around this, besides the password, is they're allowing you to stop anyone else from sharing their screen. And that's critical, because you really don't want somebody taking your screen when you least expect it. Same thing, and I don't know why people do this. I gotta tell you, I was in a meeting the other day and all the speakers are talking, and then all of a sudden Jane, nobody knows who Jane is, showed her desktop, and you know, she's got all these pictures of her kids all over the place, and it had nothing whatsoever to do with the speech. She didn't realize that she accidentally hit screen share. So turn it off. If you don't need it, turn it off.
Lois?
And when you do a screen share, at the top of your screen, you can still see all kinds of stuff. You can stop the share. You have more, which would include chats. You can manage your participants, you're the host, and you can mute yourself. So this gives you the opportunity to do a whole bunch of stuff once you're sharing your screen. And the most important is the new share. Because instead of having to stop and start all over again, you can just click new share and show a different screen. So if I'm showing the internet and then I want to turn around and show a Word document, it's a new share because it's not even the same application. If I'm showing the internet page A and I want to go to page B, it's the same app, so I don't need a new share. Okay. If you're going to use private chats, you find that there's a lot of ways to find the person. You can find them on the screen. If there isn't a big meeting, it's easy to find. And right-click on them, on their picture, and select chat. You can go to your participant section down below. And when you click participants, you can find everybody listed alphabetically. And hopefully when they listed themselves, they used their real name. And lastly, you can go down to the chat box where it says everyone and just change the name there. So here's the question, and we get this all the time. Should you use the computer or can you use your phone or iPad? And the answer is 100%. If you have that option, use the computer. You have more options available to you. It's more comfortable and you can just sit here. And if you're going to use an iPad, okay, here's what happens. You have an iPad or a phone and you're looking at it like this, and you're looking like this, and everybody's not looking at things they really want to look at because you're not looking straight on. And if you are looking straight on, you're looking down like this, and any way you look at it, it's not natural unless you're able to literally take your iPad and put it eye level, or your phone and put it eye level. So if you have an option, I'd use the computer. If you don't, well, then a phone or an iPad works just great.
Hey, Lois, we are close to out of time here. I know you have a lot of things that we have not covered here. So I'd like to invite you back in our May webinar so you can actually talk about lighting and setting up your mobile phone and all of that. How do you feel about that? Are you good for that?
And I would love to do that. We'll cover breakout rooms and all kinds of fun stuff.
Okay, great. Well, let's give Lois Margolin, member of the Coral Springs Charter Chapter and Ambassador Steering Representative for District 1, a nice round of applause. Yay! Good. So thank you, Lois. And we are going to move on. Let me just push through these. You see all the exciting stuff you'll learn the next time. Lois is here joining us. I'm going to provide a few questions, opportunity for a few questions. So let's see what we have here. Here's a question, Lois. How do you handle individuals that overspeak the speaker or sharing information to the group?
Okay, well, first thing you do, if they're overspeaking the speaker, you have to turn them on mute. That is critical. And if they are talking in the chat, I would do a private chat with them and actually ask them not to do that. Worst case scenario, if someone is hijacking the meeting and not honoring it, you can always remove them.
Okay, good. Good. All right, so we're going to move on because we are at 6:46 and I know we have Robert up. So let me just make sure Robert is on, and you are, Robert. So again, I can't wait to hear what you have to say. And are you ready, Robert?
Can you hear me okay? Yes, I'm ready.
Yep, we can.
Perfect. Yep. Good. Thank you very much, Lois. That was excellent. I actually just sent out a instant message to the organizers, to Sharon, Renee, Lois, to eventually forward to all the participants in regards to how to keep uninvited guests out of your Zoom event, which to a degree we're going to be speaking to right now. Zoom has actually created a fully comprehensive document that you can click through various links in their blog that allows you to see how all those settings are set up. And we're going to go over some of that today in various screenshots that I've grabbed from my Zoom meetings profile. So if we can head to the next link or the next and move forward one more. Okay, so here, right, FBI warns of video teleconferencing hijacking during the COVID-19 pandemic. You know, Zoom has been around for quite some time now, actually for about 4 or 5 years. And it's, you know, usually used by, you know, like 10 million or so individuals or companies, you know, throughout the year. But obviously it has exploded with everybody working from home for obvious reasons. That being said, now, they've suffered somewhat of a PR nightmare due to the fact that, you know, they really were not prepared for this volume of usage, and people with too much time on their hands have abused, you know, the platform. But all in all, you know, Zoom is a really good platform run by really good people that are very conscientious, and they really do have your back. They've definitely had some overwhelming hiccups, but I honestly feel confident in their abilities to continually utilize this platform going forward regarding privacy and security. So, you know, reports of you know, VTC hacking, video teleconferencing hacking, also called Zoom bombing, are of course emerging nationwide. 200 million people now use the platform every day and are subject to hackers, pranksters, trolls, and unfortunately racists. You know, everybody's a nice person, and they suffer security, privacy, harassment, and other concerns. Next slide, please. And Renee, next slide, please. Okay, so Zoom bombing, right? Basically, every Zoom meeting, so you understand, is based around a 9-digit meeting ID. So think of your social security number. You know, it's 9-ish digits, right? And that can be guessed in some circumstances. And the same thing goes with Zoom meeting ID numbers. And so anybody can basically recreate a Zoom meeting ID. And I've seen in controlled environments, there's actually tools that one can produce where you can generate Zoom meeting IDs, and it's pretty accurate. And if that meeting ID becomes public, right? If trolls find it, bad guys find it, pranksters find it, or they guess it, they can pop into your chat and disrupt it. We don't want that to happen. Now, I'm not suggesting that you worry about that, and I'm also not suggesting that you don't use Zoom because of it, because, you know, if there's 200 million people using Zoom, there's got to be a lot of bad guys out there in order to get to you. You know what I mean? Like, there's just too many people for the pranksters to actually get to. So don't worry about it so much, but you definitely have to do something about it. And that's what we're here to talk about in the short period of time together. So first and foremost, it says right here, no public links, okay? So do not make meetings or classrooms public. Don't share a link to a teleconferencing or classroom on an unrestricted, publicly available social media post. Provide a link directly to specific people. Now, that's not always 100% doable. Sometimes you might have to post it publicly, and sometimes even those that you share it with that may be in a trusted circle and or they've signed up for a newsletter or an email or something you've put out, and you're then providing that link via email, you still may not know who that person is. So you still have to manage that. Okay, so first thing, don't post a Zoom meeting link on Facebook if you can at all avoid it. Generally, you only want to provide those Zoom meeting links with trusted people. All that being said, even if you do share it publicly, there are ways to lock the meeting in a way where people can't cause havoc. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Lois mentioned passwords. So there are 2 ways to manage your Zoom meetings. There's the desktop client, and then there's the web-based client. Desktop, of course, is the application that you have on your laptop or desktop on your computer, whether it's a Mac or it's a PC, okay? And the desktop client, I'll show you some examples of what that looks like in a moment. But the passwords generally are managed via the web version. So you see the link right here, https zoom.us/profile/settings. By the way, this this PowerPoint will be provided to everybody. I'll make sure that Renee gets it to everybody so you can actually handle it. You can click the links and so forth. So you can get to this stuff on your own. All right. So once you go to the zoom.us, you go into your settings, you're going to look for a schedule meeting, and I'm going to show you an example of that in just a minute. So look, I've been using Zoom now for over a couple of years, and to be perfectly frank, it is not entirely intuitive. It's not really easy. You do need to wrap your head around it. It does take some time to focus on it. Sometimes you're going to make mistakes, but it's all okay. With all technology, with digital literacy, as I see it, it takes practice. You can't just jump in it and all of a sudden you're off and running. You really do have to spend some time, go through a few tutorials. If Zoom is providing any learning modules that you can go through, I would suggest taking that time, especially if you plan on communicating with clients or doing any type of business via a video teleconferencing platform. You know, this is your business. This is how you make your living. You want to come off professional. You want to take the time to make sure you understand how these tools work. Okay. So everything that Lois said times 10, and spend time learning the platform. And first, you know, going into zoom.us and going into the back office area and looking at all the various settings. And there's the link to do it via zoom.us/profile/settings. And again, I'll show you an example in a minute. And then the waiting room, as Lois had mentioned previously, there's the link to manage that within Zoom's back office. And once you get there, you're going to go to in meetings in advanced. Now, there's one way to navigate this stuff. Obviously, there's the up and down arrow. There is using your mouse. But also, if you do Control F in your browser, Control F, by hitting that on your keyboard, is Control Find, and a window will pop up and you can search anything in that particular window. Most people know how to use this tool. I'm just going to go over it for people who aren't familiar with it. But when you do Control F and you search waiting for waiting room, it'll take you right to where that waiting room is via that settings. Okay, so next slide, please, Renee. Okay, so managing screen share options in Zoom. Oh, no problem. In Zoom, change screen sharing to host only. More on that below. So when you share, when you allow everybody to share their screen, that's when the ne'er-do-wells, that's when the pranksters and the hackers and those that want to just wreak havoc kind of kick in. And, you know, they do all kinds of silly things that are often offensive, right? And so we want to eliminate that from the very beginning. And the more public your meetings are, like if you don't necessarily know the 20 or 30 people that are going to be on that meeting, or the 200 or 300 or 1,000 people that are going to be on that meeting, then more than likely you're going to have to lock down all your settings, because chances are if you've got 100 people on that meeting, one of them is going to be a complete idiot and do something offensive, guaranteed. That's just usually how it is, especially in a public space. In a situation like this, everybody knows each other. It's a membership site, so it's much different scenario. These are people who we know, we like, and we trust. The public, that's a bit of a different story. So also, one of the things you need to be aware of is updating. So update the version of your Zoom software. So on your desktop client, you want to make sure to update that, because there have been a number of different versions, and each version's updates are designed for functionality updates and also for security update. Okay, and let's go to the next slide, please. So right here, what you're looking at, the slide is a screenshot of your back office settings via zoom.us. Okay, so once you're logged in to Zoom and you go to your settings menu, now this is again on the web, which is very different than the desktop version. And I have been confused about this myself in the past. That's why I'm being very explicit here. Because the desktop version, of course, is the app you have on your desktop, and the web version, of course, is via your browser, because zoom.us. Now, this is where you access your settings via the back end, right? And so from here, You can see settings is kind of highlighted right there. And then at the top, under meetings, you see a bunch of different options right there. Now, I want you to notice a couple of things. When you look at, hold on one second, I'm going to pull something up for myself here on my own screen, right? Just give me 1 second here. All right, so if you're looking at this particular slide, and some of you might need your glasses because I know I do, just turned 51, you'll see under schedule meeting, right? You'll see under schedule meeting, you'll see host video, and you'll see the slide is set to on, right? Meaning it slide to the right, and you'll see participants video, and you'll see that the slide is to the right. That means that the host is showing his or her video, and that means that the participants are also allowed to show his or her video. Okay? Now, via the web-based settings, right, this is where you have master controls of everything. Now, if you never need anybody in your Zoom meetings to show their video, you can shut it off right here, and nobody will ever be able to show their video. All right, so that's, you shut it off here, nobody can show their video. It's just you and your screen and your video, and nobody can show their video ever. You have complete total control from the back end. That's a nice feature if you are doing public webinars to mass amounts of people. You want to shut that down ahead of time. You can also shut it down individually or in the desktop client, but that can be cumbersome in certain situations depending on how many people you have on. Okay, so let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, so let me just check out one thing really quick here. Just give me 1 second. Okay, thank you very much for that, Lois. I'm sorry, Renee. All right, so right here, what you're looking at is once you click in meeting, right? In meeting, which is the basic version. This allows you essentially to restrict who can see video. I'm sorry, so whose videos can be shown. So right here you see where it says in meetings basic, we have screen sharing is on, but I have it as host only. So right here from the back end, the web-based version, again, this is, you have full control here. Host only means that nobody can share their screen, that it really is under the complete control of you, the host. Okay. Now, if you are a priest, you're doing church from your chapel or from home for that matter, which we've seen, and in the Boston area very recently, this exact thing happened, and they shared their public Zoom meetings link, and people were coming on and they were showing Nazi tattoos and pornography during church. Okay, so now if the pastor had turned the settings to host only ahead of time, and obviously church is a very public thing, if they turned it to host only ahead of time, they would have eliminated the possibilities of that happening in the first place. So ultimately, these settings are up to you to manage and control, because not everybody's nice, so you have to do these things. All right, so Renee, if you could head to the next slide for me, please. All right, and thank you very much. So right here, what you're seeing is, this is the desktop client. So many of you who have used Zoom in the past, you're familiar with when you download the app, okay, the application, the software that you download onto your computer. Once you launch it, this is basically your dashboard. And from here, this is where you join various meetings and you have various settings, and you look at the arrow. See the arrow off to the right? That little gear icon that arrow is pointing towards, that's your desktop settings for like managing your own audio, your own video, like managing the different functions and features for yourself, right? Basically all of your multimedia, so to speak. Okay, but that is not where you're going to be accessing the various controls that I'm about to show you. Where you're going to access the various controls that I'm about to show you in the desktop compliant is where you see those 4 icons, where you see the orange and you see the 3 blue ones, where you see join, the top right one, right? Thank you, Renee. That join is what you're going to click in order to access all the various functions for your specific meeting. That's where you actually join a meeting. Even as a host, that's where you join your own meeting and administrate your own meeting, okay? So this is all information that I've learned from tutorials that I've taken from Zoom, from people like Lois, and from really, clicking all these links myself and, working through it. I find tactile, working through it yourself and clicking on all those links and just seeing how that stuff works is the best way to wrap your head around all of it. All right, so next slide, please. Okay, so right here is what the desktop client looks like. Okay, so again, I know a lot of you are somewhat more advanced, and this is all, common sense to you, and you've already been here, but I know there's a lot of people on here that this might be new information for them because, 190 million people just jumped on Zoom in the past month. So a lot of this is new for you. So right here, this is what it looks like as a host, right, when you're actually in a Zoom meeting. And this is where you have a lot of the control on the desktop version that you could also have on the web version. But here is where you manage it via the desktop. Now keep in mind, anything that you turn on or off via the back office on the web version, those features may or may not be available on the desktop version. If you shut them off on the web version, they're not going to be available on the desktop version. The point is you have two places you control these things, but ultimately on the desktop version, it limits your control if you turned it off online. Take that one slow. All right, so what you're looking at right here, why don't you back that up a little bit, Renee, for me? Thank you so much. All right, so right here, what I'm showing you here is how to restrict screen sharing. So if somebody's acting out or acting up, or simply you just want to restrict screen sharing from the very beginning of your meeting, because there's often no reason to have anybody share a screen due to the fact they're not a co-host, and the only time you'd ever want somebody to share their screen is if in fact they are a co-host. You can manage that right here from the desktop version. So what you're looking at, and let me explain, is right there, host only. That is when you click on where it says share screen, so where you see green in the bottom menu bar, right, where it says share screen, there's a little up arrow. And when you click that up arrow, right there, who can share? And I have clicked only host. So here is the local desktop version of you being able to control who can share their screen. And as you can see, the way I have it is only the host can share their screen. So I would suggest for most of you, leave the back-end web version alone, or just at least look at it and see what's going on there, and control a lot of your stuff from the desktop version, right? You have the utmost control right here. So the share screen, and again, these slides will be available to you as a reference afterwards, so you can kind of sync them up with what it looks like on your own desktop. All right, so this is how you turn off anybody else being able to share their screen right here on the desktop version. Next slide, please. All right, thank you very much. Okay, so right here, lock meeting. Again, this is on the desktop version. You want to go to participants. So you see participants, it's kind of highlighted in that bottom menu bar, and then more. Now more is to the right. So if you scroll all the way down on the bottom of that menu bar, the black one, right, and you go beyond where it says leave meeting in red and keep going to the very right-hand corner, there you go. Thank you very much, Renee. That is more. Now go to the next slide. When you click more, excellent. This is what shows up. This is basically a drop down or drop up menu in this particular scenario. And take a look at that. So if you have the ability to zoom in, and I know it might be difficult for some of you, but basically what you're looking at here are more options for you to manage, right? Who can do what? From this point, right, you have the utmost control. I'm going to read a few of these menu items. So some of these are checked for me right now, and some of them are unchecked. From the top, it says mute participants on entry. I would suggest in most circumstances, depending on the nature of your business, like especially if you're doing like a webinar to sell something and you've got people from the general public that have no need to chime in, you probably want to have that box checked from the very beginning. If it's you and your employees, you may want to leave it unchecked. But if somebody's dog is barking in the background and it's becoming annoying, you may want to mute them right there and then. You can mute them individually, or you can mute all of them at the same time. And then allow participants to unmute themselves. I have that checked right now, which gives the participants more control. Now, in some circumstances, that is allowable and okay. In others, again, like in a big public webinar, you may not want to have that box checked. You may want complete control and not allow them to unmute themselves. And then, let me see, play, enter, exit, chime. That's kind of insignificant. I wouldn't worry about that too much. But that could be annoying for people. Lois might be able to cover that in another meeting, I'm sure. Allow participants to rename themselves. Now, this is an interesting one. Because if you think like I do, and I think like the bad guys do, I think like the pranksters do, because, you know, I was a 14-year-old boy once. When you allow participants, right? When you allow participants to rename themselves, now maybe somebody has a name that they want to obscure because, I don't know, they don't want to, maybe they might have put in a funny name and want to have a professional name now. You might allow them to rename themselves, and maybe they want to rename themselves because they want to be anonymous, but maybe they want to rename themselves because they want to write something profane. Okay, so allowing people to rename themselves, I would suggest in most instances you leave that unchecked. Now, if somebody chimes in and says, hey, it's really important for me to maintain my privacy, I want to rename myself, then maybe you allow them to do that for a short period of time, and then check that or uncheck that box again, depending on your feelings on that. This is just something that you need to monitor. Mind you, all of this craziness that's going on right now with COVID-19 and all the pranksters and all that stuff, I would not say in perpetuity these things that we have to worry about. But again, the idea is just to tamper down the noise and reduce any risk, and that's what we're here for. All right, and then allow panelists to start videos. Obviously, I have that unchecked right now. In Lock Webinar, I have that unchecked as well. Lock Webinar, that's something that I would do, meaning that if I check Lock Webinar, that means that nobody else can come in. So after I have my 12 or 15 or 20 or 30 people that came via email invite, I might lock the webinar, or I might not. That's up to you. If you're having problems with people coming in wreaking havoc, you may want to lock it as soon as you know that your clients or employees are already on. And then as far as allow panelists to start videos, I would always have that unchecked, because if you don't know who those panelists are, then you definitely want to have that unchecked. If it's all your friends, family, your clients, or coworkers, then maybe you have it checked, because there may be people that in fact are purposefully sharing videos. You just have to think these settings through because of, jerks. That's why we're talking about this stuff to begin with, right? And then, let me see, raise hand. Yeah, that's usually a cool thing to do. View participants counts. That allows others to view participants counts beyond you. A follow hosts view. Let me see, active speaker view, gallery view. None of those things are really, really important to the safety, security, or privacy of what we're talking about here. Okay, so next slide, please, Renee. All right, so we are at 7:11 for me, right? Or for you guys. I'm in Eastern time, right? So Renee, as far as time frame goes, how long is everybody expecting to be on tonight?
7:30, but you have to wrap up in 5 minutes. Can you do that? You've been talking fast, so I think you can.
Okay, so now there's a good chance that we're all going to be together back again in May, if everything works out well. Okay,
that's correct.
Okay, good. All right, so what we have here are the 15 fundamentals of data protection. Okay, so now look at Zoom tells you right off the bat that you should navigate the Zoom platform. You should learn the controls on the desktop client. You should learn the controls via the web-based back office. Just understand how all that stuff works. Check boxes, uncheck boxes. If you're having problems, talk to Zoom and find out what those settings are that are leading to those problems. Talk to people like Lois, take all the various classes that Zoom offers and so forth. But they also tell you to make sure to update your Zoom client, meaning your software, because the most updated version, you update it for functionality purposes and for security purposes. But Zoom will also tell you that beyond all of that, it's very important for you to update your device's software, your operating system. Make sure you have a secure connection to the internet. Make sure that you have a plan revolving around your personal and information security. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to send you off or Renee is going to send you off my PowerPoint that includes my 15 tips. Now, if any of you saw me at the national conference, I covered a lot of this stuff over the course of 3 hours. Now, we're going to probably, I want you to do some homework. I want you to go through these checklists of the 15 tips that are going to be in the PowerPoint that you're going to receive. And so when we come to the table to the meeting for the next round, I'd like to get an idea on how much you've accomplished. So we'll do some polls, and any questions that you might have, that'll be a really good time for you to ask and to get them answered as well. All right?
That was awesome. Robert, that was incredible. Thank you very much. Now we'll take a few questions before we let Robert go. And so let's see what you have to say.
I know one thing. Next time I'm coming to the meeting like Sharon did with a glass of Chablis.
Sharon, I didn't see that. My goodness.
Oh, yeah. She's been tipping. Good for her.
Okay, let's see.
So those 15 tips are a checklist for you. And I kept it really simple for you. So go through them, see what you're doing and what you're not doing, what you're confident in and what you're not confident in. And between now and then, I'll be available. Renee will be available. Like, I want to make sure, Renee wants to make sure that, ABWA wants to make sure that you guys are as secure as you need to be for all of your work at home, your remote working, and so forth.
Okay. Well, it looks like there wasn't any questions at this point in time.
No problem.
Good job, Robert. Thank you.
Great. Robert, we'll see you in May, and thank you very much. Let's give him a round of applause. Yay. So well,
don't be intimidated by any of those settings. Don't be intimidated by any of those screenshots. Just take your time, wrap your head around it. Just spend the time, like literally focus your eyes on what you're looking at, click things, move stuff around, go back and forth, just become familiar with it. Like, I always find with technology that my learning curve, I'm 51 and I've been doing this stuff since I was 25, but it's still difficult for me. I still have to wrap my head around it. And I think that everybody is like that. So don't be intimidated by it. Just spend the time on it and you'll get excellent at it.
Thank you, Robert. Good advice, and I agree. I'm the same way. I'm actually, that's how I learn, is actually practicing. So thank you very much. Well, listen, so you see on the screen there was a 5-minute break, but we're going to end here on time. So we're just going to move along. If you will just hang in there with me, we have less than 15 minutes to go, and we want to make sure that we end promptly at 7:30. So if you will just hang with me, I'll actually cover this session section of the webinar. So this is really all the questions that we have received from you about how do we actually conduct our league programming. And just as a reminder, this is one of the questions. Should our league host one or multiple virtual monthly meeting events while there is a stay-at-home order? Well, for the most part, most of you have already been doing this, and the answer is absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. You should continue to do this. And as a reminder is that the executive board's primary responsibility for their member constituents is to meet the needs and interest of their member constituents in response to as it pertains to the mission of the association, as it pertains to the league bylaws, specifically Article 2, which says the general purpose of the league is to make sure that we increase the business acumen of our members, to advance members or improve members' earning power, and to help members in securing employment. Well, check me if I'm wrong here, but I'm pretty sure those are all relevant, even more so today than they were 6 months ago. So that should be an absolute yes. Next on the question is, can our league assess a fee for members and non-members to attend the league's virtual monthly meeting? Well, why wouldn't you, is my question. Yes, there is a cost to scheduling and organizing a meeting. It is a cost to your organization. No, you're not serving food, but that being said, there is a cost to it. So that cost should actually be assumed into that experience. And you should perhaps consider having a higher charge for the non-member participant who is attending. Is there a specific platform that we're required to use? Now, we talked about Zoom all here this evening. However, you can use any platform that's comfortable to you. And the executive board really has the opportunity to choose the platform within the confines of the standing rules. So whatever the standing rules for your league, it says, here's how much you could spend is really what I'm referring to. Here is the next question regarding league programming. Can the executive board give members that have been hard hit by the COVID-19 pandemic money? I've had that question probably a half a dozen times, and the answer is no. A league should not issue checks for this purpose. That would be inuring the benefit of members. However, there are other ways that you could help women who have been hard hit by the COVID-19 virus. So think creatively about that. Questions related to best practices. This was asked in the previous March 19th webinar, but I want to share with you that again. Will a virtual meeting meet the criteria for best practices in league management? And the answer is yes. It should actually relate to the members' needs and interest. You should complete the form, the monthly meeting form, and all of the information on that monthly meeting form. How many members attended? How many non-members attended? Did you recruit any new members for this event? What was the topic? And so on. So it's just not to network, even though that is one of the functions of our association. It's just not to learn. It's a combination of both, and that should be reflected in your monthly meeting report. So if you do that, you're in good shape. Next question, will the best practices criteria be adjusted? Specifically, the question was with respect to membership due to the COVID-19. The answer is no, not at this time. So whatever's in play is in play. Now, there's usually two portions of the meeting. The most important portion of the meeting is that of networking and learning. So that's the two most important portions of any monthly meeting. We were having this discussion on a board call recently, and we were talking about this. I said, how many members do you know that attend the meeting because they can't wait to do the business of ABWA? That's not none that I know of. For the most part, everyone is there for networking purposes, everyone is there for learning, and everyone is there for fellowship. So we want to make sure that what you're doing in those meetings happen in that way. So the question is then, how do we manage the business portion of the meeting? Well, Actually, you don't at this time. And I have to look at the screen here. Is according to the Chapter and Express Network bylaws, specifically Article 6, there must be a quorum of membership to conduct any business. Only members in good standing are eligible to vote, and the right to vote must be done in person, not virtually, not by email, not by a raise of hand in a Zoom meeting. It must be done in person. Yes, I know. Here come the emails. Here's the other caveat to this, and we have actually been talking to ABWA's counsel for the last week about this very particular issue. In some states, voting virtually is not acceptable. You can't see the "not," but it's there by the theme logo, is not acceptable for membership organizations like ABWA. And one example of that is our fellow state on the other side of the state line is Missouri. So that's why it is not acceptable. And the bylaws, league bylaws, are the umbrella for all of the chapters and express networks. So if you've actually conducted a vote virtually in the past 4 or 5 weeks, those votes are not legitimate votes. You're going to have to go back and do that again once we are open for business and we can meet face to face. The next question is, if we can't amend the bylaws, then how do we elect the nominating committee and our league officers, right? The nominating committee, that was the thing that was addressed in the last March 19th webinar. How do we do that? Well, actually, again, any league business, including the election of officers, must be tabled until your league resumes its face-to-face meeting. And it should resume those face-to-face meetings without risk of injury to your membership constituents. We don't want anyone risking their life for that. So the next question, or the natural question, is, so what if we have a stay-at-home order on August 1st? It's still, we're supposed to stay at home. Then what? Well, you continue to bring the best of ABWA experience. You continue to provide a networking opportunity, keeping members connected. You continue to provide a learning opportunity, but you do table the business. And then what? Well, the current executive board will continue to serve until such time the membership can convene face-to-face to conduct the official league business. And there is a provision in the Chapter and Express Network bylaws that says, okay, if someone on the executive board drops out, then what? Well, there's an opportunity for the executive board, without the vote of the membership, to appoint someone to serve in that position. Sharon, do you have anything to say about that? Sharon?
Sorry, I had to unmute, excuse me. It's a lot to take in, but I understand. I will tell you that the board did meet to rescind the vote that we had previously about virtual meetings.
Well, I'm going to talk about that in just a second. So let me go there. But in terms of this, I know you've been getting a lot of questions about this recently. Correct?
Yes, yes, that is correct. I can tell you that, you know, our chapter, we already had, you know, some chapters were able to have a March meeting, and Heart of the Piedmont Mon League actually did have our nominating committee selected, and we've been working on a slate of officers. However, we have not voted, and we cannot vote until we get back together again. So that just means, like Renee just explained, it might be your current executive board may have to carry over through August. It all depends on this coronavirus when we can get back together face to face. And like Renee said, you do not want to have a face-to-face meeting just to be able to vote, because that is putting your members in health risk, and we do not want that. So again, you know, you heard my words: change, innovate, everything. So, you know, we've never had this happen before. So you're going to see some things that we're figuring out that we're all going to have to adapt to, and keep in mind that the most important thing is our members and the mission of ABWA And that's got to be our priority to continue. I think we can all adjust and do what we need to do.
Good. Well, that's what we usually do as women, right? So
That's exactly right.
another question about the business segment of the meeting, it was the top 10, and this was asked in the March 19th meeting. It says, if we can't amend the dates in the bylaws, then why can you change the deadline for the nominee of the top 10 deadline? And it's very simple, because the national awards are really established by ABWA National. They're not part of the articles of the bylaws, national or league bylaws. So awards such as the Top 10 Award, that's TT is Top 10, Inner Circle, Best Practices in League Management. They're separate and apart from the articles in the bylaws. So we can change them easily. And then how about, can we at least vote on a Woman of the Year? This was one of the things that was asked through Cynthia's phone calls. And the answer is it really depends. It depends on how the league established this particular award, because this is a local award. It is not a national award. The league defines the criteria. And for example, what I've seen in best practices submissions is some leagues automatically, if you are serving as the president or some specific position, you are automatically defined as the Woman of the Year for that particular award year. So if that's the case and no voting by the membership is required, then absolutely you could name that person as you would have without COVID-19. However, if it's a situation where you have a criteria and the membership goes to vote or a committee goes to vote, well, you're kind of out of luck on that one. You have to wait until you can meet face to face. Again, I'm saying these things because I'm sharing this with you. I don't think we know all the answers. We're taking this probably in 30-day increments. And so what it looks like 30 days from now, I can't exactly tell you, but I can say, you see this image on the screen, is that COVID-19 has really created a ripple effect across the organization at every level of the organization. And we are adjusting, we are adapting, and we will be required to change and do some things differently as a result of this. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's just different. So one of the that segment was really about the league business. And let's talk. I know I'm running out of time, so you're going to have to forgive me. Give me a couple more minutes past the 7:29 time frame. This next segment is on the impact of COVID-19 on the National Association. What I have on the screen is basically Article 9 of the national bylaws, which really defines the positions of the National Board of Directors. There are 9 positions. There are 3 officers and 6 district vice presidents. This article also defines how members are voted on. It states that the nomination for office must be done by May 1st. It states that the candidates must attend the national meeting, and all officers shall serve until 1 year or until their successors in office have been named. So here are the questions or the impact. If the national board can't amend the dates in the national bylaws, then how will our league nominate a member for national office? Well, I hope you know the answer by now. Only members that have already been approved legally or legitimately are considered candidates for national office. So if there were someone who got voted in the last couple of weeks during the shutdown in a virtual meeting, that is not a legitimate vote, and therefore this would not be a candidate for national office or candidate in waiting for national office. Next question. Wasn't it reported in the last Just in Time webinar that the National Board of Directors amended the national bylaws to allow leagues to vote for their candidates virtually due to COVID-19? Sharon, I'm going to let you answer this one.
Well, we did not know better. Okay, maybe that's not a good answer, but we did think that that would be official, that you could do that virtually. And we since then, after talking to council, have found out that that is not official. So we did have a board meeting. We had to rescind that once we found that information out. So apologize for that. Like I say, we're learning as we go on this. Again, this has never happened before. And as Renee says, it is not official to vote virtually.
So what's the impact on the National Association based upon this recent revelation? Well, it's pretty significant. Okay, so let me just share with you, with the current number of approved candidates, we have at least 3 districts that would go unrepresented. At least 3 districts that would go unrepresented in the next award year, or next at the annual meeting. And the candidates for the top 3 officers would go, officer positions would run unopposed. And I'm reading this information because I want to make sure I'm correct and I don't misstep. It's because of this May 1st deadline that is outlined in the national bylaws. We can assume at this time there will be no new nominations for national office. We can also assume we will not have a sufficient number of approved candidates, as I just said, to fill all the positions for the National Board of Directors. As a result, this is how it impacts the National Association. We cannot have an effective annual meeting in October at the National Women's Leadership Conference as we would have prior to COVID-19, which leads us to conclude at this time, based upon the data we have, again, at this time, based upon the data we have, that the National Association would be best served if the current National Board of Directors would stay in place in their current positions for another year until the next annual meeting when the membership will convene in the fall of 2021. Again, we're going to know more in the next 30 days, which is why we're going to do another webinar in early May and how this plays out. But we wanted to be honest with you. Here's where we sit. It's not all good news, but here's where we sit at this time. Now, I will assure you that that's not what any of the National Board of Directors had signed up for. However, in a 3-hour to 10 p.m. phone call last night, Sharon asked each of the members of the National Board if they were willing to serve a second term in the same position. So no one moves up if this plays out in the way it looks like today. And the answer was, Sharon?
Yes, we'll do whatever we need to do for the association. I'm proud of them. Yes.
Okay, so that is the conclusion of today's webinar. I thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to turn off the recording. It is past 7:30. I appreciate the extra time you gave me to get through all of this, but I think we had some great presenters, Lois and Robert. This information we felt was just that you heard it from us first. And if you have any questions, again, please contact us, webmail@abwa.org. We will certainly be willing to answer all of your questions in the next webinar, if not sooner. I'm going to turn off the recording. If you want